In this session, I hope to address this bug where the entities list loaded on the svelte UI comes from this variable that's on the window object. And when new entities are added, this variable isn't updated. So we also want to load it from the backend each time the component is opened. To do this, let's go to app, and we have initialized a client, and that is init client is imported from Urkel Svelte, and that allows us to call these, but I think we can call it from anywhere. So once it's initialized, it's put on the context, which is shared with all of the children. So if I take this and cut, and I'll paste it next to this stuff, and I'll grab all of this. And the part that I want to include it in is the entity list. So this is the part that requires it. So let me paste this back. The part that will remain in the script should be this part. So we're doing a query for a particular space. Let's just hard code that to A for now because we know it's in there, and we want the entities, and for every entity we want we can grab the ID, the type of entity, and what else? Components, which we want the type and the data. And we want the name here. So with that, we can query entities. And we can print this out, but I'm not sure we need this. We can. Let's see. So this stuff here might not work anymore. Entities is, so this is actually the space. This is the space. We query the space, and then we can subscribe to the space, and then we could populate entities here. So we can have let entities let's just initialize it with an empty array at first. And see what happens. We load this up, we enter here. So the engine still loads it from the page. We join the space, And if we click on menu, nothing happens. Didn't even open. Operation store is not defined. 0 comes from where? Space 2, const space 2 equals operation store. Oh, okay, we need to import that as a function. Import operation store from Urkel. Join and menu. Okay. Query is not defined. Okay. Bring in query. Why aren't you underlining it for me? What's now? Syntax error. Expected name found string A. How about a slug? Okay. Entity list is okay. So we got stales, false, fetching true, undefined, undefined, undefined. Then we got stale false fetching false, and it has some data. Data is the space ID entities. Entities gets type grid components and okay, has a couple of extra elements on it, but I guess that's fine. So with that value subscribe, what was it? So value dot data, if value dot data, then entities equal value dot data dot space dot entities. So it's going to load it from the query. Subsequent operations will update it here. Which just updates one. We only update based on the thing we know about. We're never. It's not true because you can get entity created, entity deleted from other parts of the space, and including our own messages. So I think that's fine. That is fine. Okay, so. Okay, so we'll add a box. Got the box. And we'll close this. We'll open it again. Still no box. That might be because there's some caching going on. So as you open this up again, I didn't see a second request for this. So yeah, we only have the one here. Urkel svelte disable cache maybe? So if I close this, do some other operation, come back here. Maybe you need to do like on mount. Let's try that. Svelte on mount. Every component has a life cycle that starts when it is created, ends when it's destroyed. There are a handful of functions that allow you to run code at key moments. On mount, which runs after the component is first rendered to the DOM. We briefly encountered it earlier. We'll add an on mount header to load some data over the network. Import on mount from svelte on mount. Do this. Okay, worth a try. Let's do that. So we'll import the on mount from svelte. We already have the entities specified as nothing. We'll put all of this into the on mount function, which will do like so. Cut and paste. Let's console log in on mount. Oop. In on mount function called outside component initialization. Get current component. Context set client. Set client business. Function called outside component initialization. Okay. Orchestrated entity list, operations. Okay, it didn't like this. On mount, doing all that kind of stuff. Alright, let me comment out this on mount part. If I join the space, I get in on, I mean, that was just our console log. We're not actually in the mount. So if I close it and I open it up again, I do get the on mount again. Oh, this did get called. And the data has 2 point. Okay, so let's add a cone. We have a cone. Let's close this, clear this. Okay, so I think it is the caching. This entities is 2 now. So let's check if there's caching. Remove this, remove that. Okay, Urkel svelte disable caching. Request policy that is defined will alter what the default document cache does. By default, cache will prefer cache results and will otherwise send a request, which is called cache first. In total, there are 4 different policies we can use. Cache first prefers cache results and falls back to sending an API request when no cache. Okay, cache and network returns cache results, but also always sends an API request, which is perfect for displaying data quickly while keeping it up to date. Network only will always send an API request and will ignore cache results. Cache only will always return cache results or null. So I think we want network only. Or cache and network. There's another field on results.stale, which indicates that the cache result is either outdated or another. Okay. And the API returns an empty list, then the cache won't be able to see that and set and invalidate it. There too. Additional type names. Okay, but where do we set this? Where do we set this request policy? There we go. New client. Request policy. So we go to app. Init client. Request policy. Cache network. See what that does now. Alright, I'm going to delete the cone. Oops, looks like we got a bug. Argument error. Okay, delete cone. Okay. Let's trace through that. So we got an entity which has a function called request delete entity, and this will pass the the payload, which is this, and okay, now it needs a tuple. This becomes problematic because we're not able to pass tuples from the JavaScript land. So we can use the query and operations store. So we'll grab this, go to the entity, import these, let's put all our imports at the top, and instead of sending it to Signal Hub, we'll now define our query. So our query will look like okay, operations store. I don't want to store this though. Okay, well, hold on. I want to test one thing at a time. Okay, so if I can't delete those, let me just add a sphere. I'll close this. I'll open it up. Sphere is there. Okay, so it was the caching. Okay, so that problem is solved. Now with the deleting, I need to know how to write a mutation. So Urkel svelte mutation. The query utility only accepts an operation store as its only argument. Operation store should only be called once per component, as it lives alongside the component and hooks on its destroy lifecycle method. Subscription accepts an operation store as its first argument. Mutation function either accepts an operation store as its only argument or an object containing query, variables, and context properties. When it receives the latter, it will create an operation store automatically. Whoops. Mutation takes or an object containing query. All right, let's do this. Query, variables, and context. Variables and context. It will create this function will return an execute mutation callback, which can be used to trigger the mutation. Let's give us an example. Mutation, yes. Mutation to do. Mutation query, is that? Okay. $, that, blah, blah, blah. And then function, update to do the new title, mutate to do, you're giving it the ID and then the title. Okay. I like this. Let's do this. mutate to do? Well, delete entity mutation. And so mutation, we give it $, which is an ID. So we want to give it the slug, which is a string, and the name of the entity, which is a string, and then we say delete entity, passing through the slug, which is $slug, and the name, which is $name. Doesn't take any return, and now we call upon delete entity mutation, passing in the slug, which is what? We don't have it. Well, we can at least pass in the name, which is the entity dot name. Yeah, we're passing in the whole object. Request delete entity. So we got the name. We do need the slug. So maybe we can set that in the context. Let's see, what are we called with? We export canvas ID. Okay, you can give us the slug as well. That would be useful. Export let slug be a string. Then in orchestrator, when we're initializing the app, we can also pass in the, and by the way, we can do this. We can pass in the slug. If we know the slug. Do we know the slug? This stat slug. Sure. So we have it. And then an app. Everything's a child of app, right? Let's set the context. Import set context from svelte. set context key slug. The key is literally slug, and the context is the slug. And then in the entity, to delete this, we could say that const slug equals get context. Ooh. Let's import get context from svelte, and the key is slug. That gives us a slug, and therefore we can pass slug here, and that should call delete without using signal hub, but using our GraphQL mutation. Let's hope this works. So delete a box, didn't do anything. Oh boy, function called outside component initialization again. Is that this? Okay, yeah. Okay, I guess we need to define something outside of this function. Let's put this out here. Actually, we can hard code the slug, right? We don't need to pass in a slug. There's only one slug, and it's always slug. So then we don't need to pass the slug here. Let's try this again. Do that, do that, do that. Yes, 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 it is deleting using GraphQL. Adding a box is not using GraphQL, but it works. All right, ran out of battery. Let me pause here. Let's close this. Open it up again. It has refreshed this. Delete the sphere, which you can't see. Delete the cone. Delete the box. Close and open. That looks fine. I'm more or less happy that this bug here is kind of taken care of. Alright. Now, we also need to edit the settings. So we need a mutation to be able to do that. We go over to schema. I guess this can be a I wonder if we need to create a type for the settings. I've never created a mutation that looks like this. Our mutations look like this, where we take arguments. Let's do a little research. GraphQL input object mutation. Type mutation set message, taking in this stuff, a string. You can also have input be message input, this and this, and create a message with a message input. So we can update settings with settings input, get back settings. Okay. Type mutation, let's put it at the top. Update settings for a space. Field should be update settings, get back JSON, which is a type, right? Okay. We do create message. Okay. The input I guess the arg will be called input, and it will be settings input. So it requires a non-null settings input, which we need to define. Undefined function. Input. There. Settings input is not defined. Let's uncomment this and call this settings input. I think this is called input object. Is that right? We get the args, and we need to resolve that with our space resolver and call update settings 3. We'll jump into space resolver, go into update settings. We get the parent args and context, and can we just inspect IO inspect what the args are? And right now we'll leave it at that. So if we go to local localhost graphical, and look at our mutations. We're going to do update settings. So mutation, update settings. Input can be a settings input, which, what's the error? In field clear color, expected string found none. Okay, so you need the whole thing. Clear color. Clear color needs a string. Alright, so what's this? Okay. Fog color. I guess all of these can be nullable. They can be optional. Fog color. Blah. And then what else? And then fog density is float, and skybox inclination is a float, and use skybox is false. Alright, I want to see how this comes out in Elixir. I execute that, get an error, but before the error, did you print out what it was? Okay. That looks pretty good. It's all converted into the underscore format for Elixir. And we need to have the slug, because I don't know which space you're trying to update. And I think this could even be a space input. Alright, where's the settings input? Settings input, I think these can be nullable, because if they're not present, we're not updating them. So if we did input object that is a space input, you can update the slug. You can update, which is a string. You can update the description. You can update the settings. And then we'll change this to be update space. And the input is a not null space input. Update the space. Jump into the resolver. Update the space. So if we reload this, we go to update space, the input is settings. So if I wanted to update the settings, I can do it this way. But I also need I need the slug. That's the arg, and then I need the attributes. All right. So what? I'll reload this. We'll get the slug. I want to update is A, and the attributes are this. And I also want to update what the description. So if I take a look at this, we're sending slug attributes. Very good. So is there a context we can use? Let's check spaces. Do we have something where you can update space? Create a space, update a space. Here's a space. We have an edit, change, set, and broadcast. That looks pretty good. Just do update space. Which returns OK and a space. And yeah, I think we should return space. Alright, let's go update space. We'll go spaces, update space with a space and args attributes and space equal spaces get space by slug args slug. So this will return OK and a space, which I think is what we want. So let's just restart this for good measure. Restart this. This is must have a selection of subfields. Oh, okay. Now we need a collection of subfields, which just give me the new description, and we'll call it like 1, 2, 3 slug A. I don't even want to update. Oh, fine. So let's look at the local host space, and if we look at edit here, so here's our clear color was 2011, and fall color was this and this. Oh, actually, we should merge, not replace. Well, let's see if this works at all first. Oops, and where am I here? Description will become 1, 2, 3. Currently the description is A. Oh, okay. At post, split session, enumerable not implemented for active change set. Action, update changes, color, invalid color string, okay. Yep, that's an okay color string. This is not an okay color string. Clear color, font, inclination, skybox. Alright, let's try again. Hey! Accepted it. Let us reload this page. Description 1, 2, 3, clear color. All of this worked. Great. So update a space change. Okay, error. I guess that was the error we were seeing before. I kind of want to do this. So if args attributes map has key in this map has the key of settings. If this is true, condition. Then map put into args attributes of the key of settings, and the value will be map.merge map1 map2 map put gives you back a new map. So here args attributes equal and should do that is true, do that, otherwise do args attributes. Cannot invoke remote function. Oh, we can't make an assignment on a map like this. We can say that attributes args attributes, so that'll give us a map. And we can say that attributes equal, so attributes is unused. Equal, okay, let's do this. So attributes equals args condition. If the map has a key of settings, then create a map that puts into args attributes settings, merging any attributes in settings that you give us into the existing space settings that we have, and produce a new map which will be assigned to attributes. Otherwise, just give us attributes. And that should allow us to just target one of the settings. Update this space. So, let's say I want to change the clear color to green. So, I don't need to talk about description, any of this. I can just say settings, clear color is RGB, like that. Error before the thing. You have set that the relation settings has on replace set to update, but you are giving it a struct. Change that to since you have set on replace to update. You are only allowed to update the existing entry by giving updated fields as a map. Okay, let me see what we're trying to do here. We have this spaces, update space with the attributes. Okay, let me see what we're giving. So IO inspect update space matters label clear here. So everything else, oh, right. We can't give a struct, we need to give a map. a map. I'm going to give it as a map. Spacers over here. So map.merge space settings. So if we get space, for example, space equal spaces get space by slug, and space dot settings is this thing. And if you did elixir convert struct to map, map from struct. Just remove this out of the struct. Map from struct. Space settings. Pipe it to map from struct. And pipe that to that. Let's see what we get. Clear. Bam. Okay. What do we get? Nice. Let's change just the fog color. Fog color to all zeros, I guess. 1, 2, 3, what do we get? I can check over here. Refresh. You know how that works. Just change the name. Let's just change the name. Attributes. Okay. Name is blah 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 blah. What? Name is an unknown field. Space has a name. What are you talking about? Space has a name for sure. So, schema. Space needs a name. Field name. No. String. Input for a space input. Yeah, you can change the name field. Name string. Cool. Okay. Now we have the ability to mutate, update spaces. And of course, we can also fetch the space. So we'll leave it to next time to actually implement the space edit. We'll call it a day.